and welcome to another episode of Candy and Chaos, where candy is sweet, life is messy, and we do it all bougie on a budget. Now, today is our parenting episode, where we talk about things that we as parents deal with day in and day out. And the last time that I was on here, I talked about discussing teenagers. Last week, I talked about Canal Street and bougie on a budget. And today, I'm in the throes of raising three teenagers, a preteen. And so my daughter is 12, my son is 14, and my other son is 17. And I am unwell. That's the nice way of putting it. I was never prepared to be a teenager mom, be a teen mom. Well, I'm not a teen mom. You know what I mean. Mom of teenagers. Wow, that came out wrong. I am a mom of teenagers, and I never thought I would be one. And you're like, Katie, you had children. You have to know they're going to grow up. Sure, I knew they were going to grow up, but I never had the mentality that they were going to be teenagers. Like when I was in the throes of newborn phase, toddler, like I never liked the newborn phase. It's fine if you love having a newborn in your house. That's great for you. I am not a newborn mom. I had very hard time being a newborn mom, but I was a thriving toddler mom. Like I loved having a toddler. They're so cute, they're so funny, they're so sweet, they're learning new things, they love up on their mom, and it was a beautiful time as a parent. And then, even middle school I was fine. As soon as they hit like 6th grade, your world turns upside down. I'm not so if you're like a toddler parent listening to this podcast right now, maybe just take what I say as a grain of salt. Maybe just use this as a guidebook to let you know to enjoy the age that you have right now. And I'm not saying that toddler age is easy. Oh, goodness, no. You have the temper tantrums, the sleepless nights. It's exhausting. But being a teenager mom of teenagers, I got to watch how I say that. It's a new kind of exhaustion. And I found something on TikTok, and I want to read it before we kind of really dive into it. And it says, studies say that after your child turns 18, you may only spend about 365 days total with them, spread across the rest of your life. So stay up late, love on those babies, give them all the I love yous and all the hugs. Like, it's just choking me up. One day, those moments will be the ones you miss most. So, let that sink in for a minute. And it is so true. And you don't see that until you're in it. And even when you're in it, you don't fully understand the gravity of the fact that, and somebody else had said to me, my friend said to me, that you're raising your children to one day leave you. And that's a really heavy statement to process as a parent, because you never imagine your children leaving the home. Like, you hear about empty nesters, and you hear about all these people who their children move out and they're so proud of them, and I am really struggling with that thought that sooner rather than later, my oldest son is going to be moving out. He's graduating high school in June, and he's already talking about where he wants to live afterwards. And I don't know how to live my life not being his parent and having him around. Like, I know I'll always be his parent. I know I'll always be his mom, and I'll always hold that place in his life. But it's a different place. And I have a very hard time. And I know that I've spoken to other parents who have a really hard time with their teenagers growing up about how they fit in their lives. And, that's kind of just how I want to go along with this podcast, is like processing those feelings, because I know other parents are having them, because I watch it on TikTok. I watch it on Instagram. I hear it in other podcasts. I hear it with my friends. My very good friend, Sheena, she has a son who is my middle child's age, 14. And we text back and forth about like, oh my gosh, these teenage years, these boys with their attitudes and they're so stinky and, all of these things. And then you step back and you're like, wow, I never thought I'd be here. And that's what I keep going back to. And I still can't wrap my brain around the fact that I have an almost 18-year-old son, almost an adult son. He's driving, he's got a job, he's graduating high school, he's exploring what's out there in the world for him. He's got bills to pay. And I always wonder, like, where do I fit in that? Like, he just went to California for 5 days without me. Him and his buddies all flew out to California. They had an amazing vacation, and you know, I have high anxiety. Like, I always think that the worst is going to happen. And for me, having my son go out without me is very, very scary. And so he went, and I handled it the best that I could. I cried when he got on the plane, and I made him text me. And thank God for Life 360. I, it's a blessing and a curse. Like, as a teenager, I would have died if my mom had Life 360, because I was most likely not where I said I was going to be. but sorry, mom. Sorry. But Life 360 has really cut down on my anxiety, because I know where he's at and I can track him. And if he's in trouble, I can go find him. And that was very prevalent when he was in California, and I knew where he was. But also, I would say probably 6 months to almost a year ago, he got into a car accident. And he called me up and said, Mom, I got into a car accident. I don't know where I am. Like, I can't tell you where I am because I don't know where the roads are. And I got on Life 360 and I knew exactly where he was, and I was able to go get him. So that is an advice that I could give to parents when their child starts becoming more independent. Download that Life 360 because it's amazing. And no, this is not sponsored. This is not an ad. This is what I really, truly love. And I use it on my mom too, because I'm like, Mom, where are you? Like, I need to know where you're at all the time. And I do use it on my 12-year-old and my 14-year-old as well. But, going back to California, it was a very interesting experience to see how I would function without him around all the time. I still had my daughter and my other son, and that was great, but it was just something was missing. Like, it just felt like there was a void. Obviously, he wasn't there, but like, I was able to really kind of see a very small piece of what our lives would be like once Gavin moved out. And this whole video is going to be so emotional. This podcast, it's just like, it's very interesting to see how your life will change forever when they move out. And, I don't know how it'll look when it becomes permanent. But that, as parents, is such like a gratifying experience too, of knowing that you raised your children well enough that they can leave the home and function. I was so proud of my son that he got on the plane, he got his luggage, he connected, he got an Uber, all of these things that, like, we as parents do for our children, but we never expect our children to be able to watch us and do it on their own. And that's such a proud moment for me as a parent, and any parent, to see their children thrive out of the household and know that they're going to be okay. Us as parents, who knows? Who knows how we're going to function when our kids leave? But, along with those beautiful moments too, there are those really difficult moments where they are testing their boundaries, they're testing their adulthood, and they're testing how far they can take it. And I know that, especially my 14-year-old, he is really testing that. He's checking in. He's seeing how far he can go, what he can do before he gets into trouble, and staying up late, cursing on his games, going out with his friends, wanting a job at 14, really kind of wanting to spread his wings, but like not knowing how to spread his wings. And it's like watching a baby giraffe walk for the first time. They really want to get out there, and you as a parent walking that fine line of being like, no, you can't, to being like, sure, give it a try and fail or succeed. Like, I don't want them to fail, obviously, but um, it's an interesting dynamic. My 12-year-old, she's still very much preteen, kind of cute, love you, I'll help you do whatever you want, mom. And that is her personality too. She's very helpful and very kind, and they all are. But I remember my 14-year-old when he was younger was very much like that. Like, I want to be around you. I love you. Let's bake cookies. I'm going to play with my cars and let's watch TV and snuggle. And now it's very much like, he's taller than I am now. And he tests that all the time, be like, oh, look how tall I am. And oh, you can't tell. And then he like towers over me like boys do. And my other son, who's the almost 17-year-old, he's over 6 feet tall now and he's towering over me. And hugging them now is something different. I hug them around the waist as opposed to around their neck. And, it's just so foreign to me that I have a very hard time figuring that out of where to go with myself, finding myself again, because I feel like they're so independent now. And when you have a toddler, they rely on you for absolutely everything. They rely on you for food, drink, comfort, sleeping, absolutely everything. And now it's like, I'm hungry. I'm going to get a snack. I'm going to go get myself something to drink. I'm going to take a shower. You fall into this new routine that's neither better or worse. It's just a new dynamic that you don't see coming until it smacks you in the face. Like, I don't remember where that line crossed where they stopped needing me for baths and showers. I don't really remember where that line ended. And I also don't remember when they didn't need me to get them a snack anymore. I missed I missed that somewhere, and it just became what happened. And I remember a post on Facebook, gosh, many, many years ago, where I was like, how old were your kids when you let them make their own breakfast? And I saw that post the other day and I'm like, man, Katie, like that just goes to show how it just hits you in the face, where your kids are like, I can make my own breakfast. And you're like, no, 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 you can't because, I'm your mom and you're too young. But are they? They're not. They were ready. They were telling me that they wanted to make their own breakfast. And it was toast or cereal, but you just kind of step back and you look at how far you've come. They no longer wake up in the middle of the night, or if they do, they're going down to get a snack and they don't bother you. And my I'm up in the middle of the night because my son is out with friends and I want to make sure he gets home safe. It's a wild, wild ride. And I wish that there were things that I would tell my younger self. So maybe I didn't miss those lines. Like, I feel like I missed that threshold of preteen to teenager. And it's interesting. I wish I hadn't missed that because I could be like, wow, look at the teenagers now. And I think that now, I look at that now and I think, wow, look at how old my kids are, like they are no longer children. They are their own human beings. And then I think, how my mom handled it. And I think back when I was going to move from Vermont to South Carolina with my first husband and how devastated she was. And I was like, you're fine. Like, whatever. I'm an adult. I can do what I want. Like, I can move. And, she's my best friend. And I'm like, you know what? It's fine. You need to not worry about things. But I think of the day when my son is going to tell me that he wants to move out of state. And I'm going to be the same way. And he's going to say the same thing to me. Mom, I'm an adult. I'm fine. And I feel bad for my mom because I'm where she was. Not quite yet. Not quite yet. I was, oh gosh, how old was I? 25 probably when I moved down south, but I eventually came back. But I was older and I was married and I had a baby, and that probably made it even worse because I was taking away her grandchild. But I digress a little bit thinking about, what I put my mom through as a teenager. and, getting a tattoo at 15 and going to house parties and not wanting to listen to her anymore, getting my tongue pierced. Like, I am so sorry, mom. I'm so sorry. But at the time, like, I wanted to be my own person. I was like, damn it, I'm an adult and I can do what I want. And I'm trying to rein that in with my son. He wants to go hang out with his friends until midnight. And I'm like, no, that is too late. Like, you can't. But then I'm thinking to myself, I didn't come home till like 2 a.m. and I was out in house parties in the field. And so, it's a very funny dynamic to think back to, but it's a different time too. I try to tell my son that. He's like, Mom, I bet gave Nana a hard time. And I did. But it's a different time now. And I don't know how to balance being his mother, but also balance being his cheerleader and his all of them. I keep saying my oldest just because he's such in a different bracket than the other two. The other two, he's going into high school. She's going in 8th grade. He's going into life, like full on life. And I'm worried also for my son to go into high school. Like, high school is a really big deal. And I still see him as a little boy who stuck his tongue to a metal cookie pan and got stuck, like on Christmas Story. Like, I still think of him like that. And um, I don't think of him as a boy who's going to be going to high school and be where Gavin is in 4 short years. Like, it just blows my mind. And driving next year. How did we get here, parents of teenagers? Like, how did we get here? And how do we survive this? I had asked on my TikTok for, advice, and people came up and said, I have a 24-year-old, a 27-year-old, a 30-year-old, and they said that they never stop worrying about their teenagers and their adult children. And I believe that. I wholeheartedly believe that, because I don't feel like I'm ever going to stop worrying about my children. You just can't. I know my mom still does, and I'm 41 years old. Parenting is really tiring, and it's exhausting, and it's so rewarding, and it's so beautiful, and it's so chaotic. And I don't think, even with me talking on this podcast, I can prepare any parent for any stage of life, because you have to live it to be there. You have to live those moments to really understand, because the parents of toddlers are going to be like, no, my kid will never act that way, and my kid will, respect me, and will go to college, and they will have stay on their curfew, and they'll never get into trouble. And I they will. I don't want to burst your toddler amazing bubble, but they will, and that's what they do. They're meant to test your limits. They're meant to make you cry. They're meant to make you second guess every single decision that you ever made as a parent. Like, did they have too much screen time? Did I feed them well enough? Did I love them enough? Was I home enough? You're always going to question that, and that is okay. But just know that you're gonna mess up, and you're gonna question, again, every single thing that you did. And I remember also back when, gosh, Gavin was probably 2 or 3 years old, and he was a tough kid when he was younger. He was a tough little boy. He wouldn't sleep. He had a hard time eating. He was rough. And my brother had come over, and he said to me, oh, my kids are never going to act that way. And then I see my nephews, who are absolutely amazing boys, but they're tough. They're a lot of work. And I remember their youngest having a temper tantrum, and I just stepped back and I was like, yeah, remember that when you said that Gavin was going to be difficult and you were never going to let your kids be that way? You know, love you, but here they are. You always say that your child will never do those things, and they will. Your oldest child will get into a car accident, get caught speeding. He will test your boundaries. He will miss curfew. He will swear at you. He will yell at you. He will tell you he hates you. It's going to happen. And I wish someone had told me that. I really do. I wish someone would say to me that teenage years are going to test you. I heard it so many times as a toddler. Oh, the terrible twos, the terrible threes. You're going to get potentially bit, slapped, poked, all these things. But I wish someone would have told me that as a teenager with a mom with teenagers, you're going to cry. You're going to want to pull your hair out. You're going to have anxiety. You're going to have a heart attack. You're going to oh, you're going to struggle. And that's okay because it's a phase. It really is. But I do wish that more parents would be more open about this, that teenage years are gonna be really hard. And every child is going to be different, obviously, and they're going to be hard in different ways. And I know that my 14-year-old is going to test me just like my 17-year-old, maybe in different ways because they're different people. Maybe he won't get into car accidents. Maybe he won't get in trouble with an e-bike. Maybe he won't, you know, get into fights at school. I don't know. Maybe he will. But those are the types of things that as a parent of teenagers, you're going to have to prepare for. The stinky boys, the I hate yous, the just yelling and screaming and all of those things that are part of life, but they really suck. Like those parts of parenting really, really suck. And I don't like that part of parenting. I don't like the mom, just like leave me alone. Like, mom, you don't know what you're talking about. Mom, I don't want to talk about it. Those types of things. And then the mental health and the struggles with relationships and friendships. And oh, it's tiring. It really is being a parent. And there are people that are like, well, then why do you have children? I don't know. Why? No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. Why did I have children? No, I'm kidding. Um, but it's a valid question. It's a very valid question. For someone that doesn't have children and they see you struggling and they see you crying and they see you so exhausted from worrying about these children, they're like, well, why the hell did you put yourself through this? And the thing is that because there are beautiful moments. My son and I went out today to go buy our dog a birthday present. It's those types of things where you're like, wow, like he's growing into somebody that is a friend and not just my child. Like we laughed and we had a great time. And then he yelled at me because our dog peed in the store and he was embarrassed. And I laughed about it and I laughed too loud. But then you come back to it and he comes and snuggles on the couch and all is forgotten. When you get that hug when you least expect it, or you get the, tap on your back when you least expect it, or you get the what's for dinner and you knock it out of the park of what's for dinner. So those are the moments that you love and those are the moments that you cherish. And I think ahead of when my children are going to be grown adults and maybe have families of their own or not, and that's okay. Or, they discover something new and they thrive in their lives. That's the reason I became a parent, because I get to watch my better self succeed in life. I get to see my purpose growing up and being great human beings and being the person that I wish I could be and be better than that. And that is the reason that you have children. And if that's not what happens, then you love them anyway. You love every aspect of that child. And there'll be days where you don't. And that's okay too. I always say to my children, like, I will love you always, but I don't have to like you right now. And I've used that a bunch of times. They're like, Mom, like, God, stop. But it's true. Like, I will always love you, but I don't always have to like you. And I do not have to like your decisions or what you've said. And that's a hard pill to swallow for your kids sometimes, to realize that maybe mom and dad aren't always on my side. And when my son comes in and says he wants to start playing guitar, or he wants a new car, or my daughter wants to, gosh, I don't even know with my daughter. she's she's great. Well, I mean, they're all great, but she's at that age of 12 where you're just like, oh, don't ever change. And I know she will. I know it's going to break my heart. And I know she's going to grow up and just be like, you're the worst parent ever. And I know it's going to happen. And I can see it. I can see it happening. And I say the guitar thing because my son came home. He's signing up for high school classes and he said he wants to learn guitar. And I'm like, ah, crap. Here's something else that we get to try and figure out. And I'm exhausted. And my son wants to buy a new car and trying to explain to him jobs and insurance and everything else that goes along with buying a brand new car, loans and defaulting on loans. And he's like, I know. No, my child, you don't. You don't know because I didn't know. I'm 41 and I still have, excuse me, issues with budgeting. And I don't want my children to have to handle that. But the thing is they will. Like, that's the most frustrating thing is they will. And it's just like, you just want to shake them and be like, I was there. I've been a teenager. I know what is going on in your mind. And I wish that you could just stop for a second and know that your mother had been there multiple times and tell them stories if they'd listen of your life as a teenager. Like, I remember in college, I I was working as a waitress and I still didn't have enough money. And so I asked my Nana to send me money, my 80-year-old Nana to send me money. And sweet baby, she sent me like 20 bucks. And, and then I think of my son who asks his Nana um, for money. And I messaged my mom and I'm like, don't you give him money. Like, he needs to learn. And there I was doing the same exact thing. And that is what is so funny is I have been there and I probably spent that $20 on, let's be honest, probably alcohol. And like, my sweet Nana had no idea. She thought I was going to go buy groceries with it. Oh no, Nana. No, no, I'm so sorry. She's no longer with us. And I wish she was because I would have told her what I bought the $20 on. Um, and then I wonder, like, what is my son doing with his money? Probably buying things on his video game, even though he tells my mom, his Nana, that he needs it for gas or something. And I'm sure he's out there going to buy snacks and KFC and not gas that he needs. So, I really just wish they would listen that we know what you're doing. Whether you think we do or not, we know. And I know in California, he spent a lot of money on clothes and things he didn't need, but he's got a job. He works. That's fine. My 14-year-old wants to work so bad. But then I tell him, well, hey, this place is hiring. Go. He's like, I don't want to work there. I don't want to do that. And I'm like, okay, well, can you just shovel the driveway or clean up your clothes and we'll give you money? And I don't want to do that. And he's going to Washington D.C. with his school, and I'm a nervous wreck. I'm like, well, I'm going to Washington D.C. If you're going to Washington D.C., I'm going to Washington D.C. and I'm gonna Life 360 the crap out of you and make sure that you're safe. I actually probably will because my other son, went with his dad to Hawaii, and guess who also went to Hawaii? Yeah, this girl right here. I mean, Hawaii, big deal, but it was too far. And God help me, I wish I could have gone to California, but I didn't. And my husband is like, "You've got to let them go." And I'm like, "Shh, no, you don't. You don't. What if they need me?" And yeah, so we flew all the way to Hawaii in case my son needed me. Did he? No, he was great. He was fine. He had a great time. I mean, so did I. I brought my daughter, my other son, and my mom, and we went to Hawaii, and we had a great time. But had my boy needed me, I was there, and I'd be damned if I was that far away from him for over a week, and he needed me. Sorry, kid. That's just the way that it is. And as I said before, my mom does the same thing. I'm like, Mom, I'm gonna go to New York City, and she's like, I'm coming. And I'm like, I'm an adult. I can. She's like, nope, I'm going. And I mean, it is because we want to spend time together. But I think deep down inside, she's like, well, if she needs me, I'm going to be there. I was planning on going to Florida to go visit a friend of mine, and she's like, I'm going. And again, I'm sure it's because she just wants to go to Florida. But again, I think deep down inside, she's also like, well, what if my 41-year-old daughter needs me? I need to be there. So, just know as parents and as a parent of teens, I see you. And it is messy and it is exhausting. And as parents of toddlers and newborns, I also see you because I also know it's messy and I also know it's tiring, just in a very, very, very different way. And, I think I've beaten this topic to death, but just remember to hold those babies tight because they grow so fast. And even when they are this old, still hold them tight and remind them that you love them and remind them that even if they do mess up, even if they make you so angry, you will always love them because you will. You will always love your babies and they will always be your babies and they will always, always need their mom. So, again, parents of teenagers, I'm here with you. I will hold on in solidarity. And if you're a parent of a teenager, drop below what the hardest part of your parenting journey has been thus far and what your worries are as a parent of teenagers. And if you are a newborn or a toddler mom, have you learned anything from this podcast? What are you worried about? Or, what do you see for your children as they get older? I'm really just kind of curious on your thoughts on all of this. But well, that time went by really, really fast. And I think that it just kind of just goes into the fact that, parenting is I could go on and on about parenting because it's the life that we're living right now. And if you're not a parent and you're listening to this podcast, thanks. You can just kind of imagine what life could be like and enjoy your non-parenting. And if you're trying to be a parent and you're struggling, I'm here for you. I'm thinking of you, and I hope and pray that you will become parents at some point. All right, so that is it for this episode. And always remember that life is messy, candy is sweet. I think I did that backwards. Candy is sweet, life is messy, and you can do it all bougie on a budget. Thank you so much for joining me. Next week is our business crafting time, so we will dive into that next week. And I know I'll have a special guest. I was supposed to have a guest this time, but it didn't work out. Next week, I'm going to have a special guest. So tune in, and we'll talk to you then. Thank you so much for joining me on Candy and Chaos, and we will talk next week. Bye.